Hello, I'm Duncan Wells, and this is Stress-Free Motorboating. You should service a life jacket annually. Before we start though, here's a contents list to help you find your way around this video. I will check my life jacket before I come to use it, especially if I've not been to the boat for a while, just to make sure that all is well. And it makes sense to have it professionally serviced every so often, because a pair of trained eyes could spot something that we've missed. After all, we want our life jacket to be in good condition if we ever need to call upon it to help save our life. So, what is a life jacket? There's a fundamental difference between a buoyancy aid and a life jacket. The difference is in the title, of course. A buoyancy aid will aid buoyancy, and a life jacket will help to save your life by turning you the right way up, face up in the water. So anything that's rated from 50 newtons, the measure of buoyancy, to 100 newtons is a buoyancy aid. Life jackets are rated at 150 newtons or 275 newtons for extreme offshore conditions. Most leisure life jackets will be gas-inflated, either automatic with a manual facility or just manual. A life jacket will turn the MOB face up and should keep their face out of the water, and it can be used in rough weather, extreme weather in the case of the 275 newton. As a matter of interest, 150 newtons gives 15 kilograms of flotation. Manufacturers also make life jackets with Newton ratings of more than 150 and less than 275 to give added flotation, which is why you'll see life jackets referred to as anything from 165 Newton to 190 Newton, but these will still be classed under the 150 Newton category. Now, when it comes to automatic firing systems, there are three main types, which will be found in most jackets, and then just one or two where the manufacturer has adopted their own version. All these brands use either United Moulders Limited, known as UML, or Halki Roberts, or Hammer hydrostatic inflation systems. The only two that I know of who use their own system are Secumar, who use a soluble pill, and Lalizas, who do the same. All of these systems rely on something dissolving and releasing a spring which fires a pin into the soft end of a gas cylinder, which then releases the gas into the bladder of the life jacket. UML have a piece of paper that dissolves, Halki Roberts have a bobbin of microcrystalline cellulose that dissolves. The Hammer hydrostatic system differs in that it requires water pressure to open the hydrostatic valve and allow water to meet the water-sensitive element that in turn releases the spring. The idea being that it cannot go off because the jacket is sprayed with water. The jacket needs to be a minimum of 10 centimeters under the water to go off. The Hammer hydrostatic system is intended for anyone who may get wet while on deck and who doesn't want the life jacket to go off at that point, but does want it to go off if they fall in the water. So let's open up this Sea-Safe Pro-Zip life jacket and see what's inside. This jacket opens with a zip. Now, when we open the cover, we find our bladder, and on this side the automatic firing mechanism and gas cylinder. And on this side we find the oral inflation tube, and not surprisingly, being one of my life jackets, we find an MOB lifesaver fitted. We'll get onto that in a moment. For now, let's look at the main action, the automatic inflation system. This jacket has a UML cartridge, or capsule as some call it. For now, I'll remove the UML cartridge and the cylinder because I want to wash the jacket. I hang it on the washing line and spray it with a hose to remove the salt and sand which results from ferrying the family in the dinghy from boat to beach. I will inflate the jacket because it's easier to get into all the nooks and crannies when it's inflated. Then I hang it on the washing line and spray it with the garden hose. There is debate about how to inflate the jacket. I feel that introducing moisture into the inside of the bladder by blowing into the oral inflation tube may in time undermine the integrity of the bladder. Others, experts at the life jacket companies, do not worry about this, but do worry about leisure boaters being over-eager with the pump and over-inflating the jacket. We only need to pump the jacket up so that it's firm, and so if we're sensible, we're unlikely to put the jacket under any stress. Don't use an electric pump, obviously, as this could cause problems. Check the manufacturer's recommendations when it comes to manually inflating your jacket. Having washed the jacket, I will towel dry it and then I'll put it in the airing cupboard overnight. I will then leave it inflated at room temperature for 24 hours. I'm making sure that the jacket does not deflate and that the bladder is sound. Then, with the jacket perfectly dry, I will inspect it for brown marks. On this jacket I do have a brown mark on the bladder. This has come from corrosion from the cylinder. You see, what happened is that someone on one of the magazines borrowed this jacket for a lifesavers test. Afterwards, they deflated the jacket but left the spent cylinder and the UML cartridge in the jacket. And in the fortnight it took to get the jacket back to me, corrosion set in, and we have a brown mark. Some life jacket manufacturers have a plastic protector that goes between the cylinder and the bladder to prevent any cylinder corrosion from attacking the bladder. This would, of course, have a rubber band around it to hold the cylinder in place, in addition to this elastic. Others have a pocket that they keep the cylinder in, like this Baltic Legend, which is protected from this side by extra layers of bladder material. This one also happens to have a plastic protector behind it and a band holding the cylinder in place. There's plenty of protection here. Nice. Brown spots are a sign that the bladder is weak here and a hole may appear. I'll continue to use this jacket for demonstrations with our MOB mannequin Nigel and so forth, and continue to monitor the brown spot. But if this was one of my on-board life jackets that might spend months in a cupboard without use, I would condemn it. I'm not trying to throw money away here, the very reverse, but a spot like that could quickly become a hole and render the life jacket useless. We check that the retroreflective tape is in place and we can deflate the life jacket at this point. Now we'll check the harness for wear, the webbing and the crutch strap or thigh straps, and their fitments. If there's a light in the jacket, we need to check that this is working. Lovely. Very nice. So let's turn that off. And then we need to check that it's in date. This manual light from Danimet is not actually in date, so we need to replace it. You get 5 years in-date life on a light. Also, I'd recommend using an automatic light. Here are a couple of Crusaver automatic lights. They activate when the sensor gets wet. After all, you may be unconscious or shocked when you go in and forget or not be able to activate the light. And here's the automatic pylon light from Spinlock, which when deployed stands about 10 inches higher than the top of the bladder for improved visibility. If we've got a spray hood, as we have here, and, in my opinion, the basic minimum for all jackets would be a light and a spray hood, as well as crutch straps, and of course a lifesaver, we'll have a lanyard, which needs to be attached to something so that the MOB can pull this and pull out the spray hood. I'm not going to pull out the spray hood. I've checked it when I washed the jacket, and all is well. One other thing, check that there's a whistle and that it works. Bit feeble, but I suppose that's okay. So let's put him back in his holder. Now we need to look at the cylinder. If it's clean, if the end is sealed, no hole in it, and if it weighs what it says on the side of the cylinder, then it's fine and it doesn't need to be changed. Matching the weight stamped on the side tells you that there's the requisite amount of carbon dioxide in it. Safety companies will change it every 5 years, certainly, and probably every year, but it's not necessary to change it if it has gas inside and if there is no corrosion on the casing. I have heard of people painting the cylinders or varnishing them, but really I think you're better off leaving the cylinders as they are and servicing the jacket every year. In 2016, some cylinder manufacturers added something to the cylinder material which was designed to reduce corrosion. It's too early to tell, but we'll see how this works. There have been manufacturers who've coated their cylinders with polyurethane, but I understand that the cylinders still manage to corrode, so keeping on top of the servicing is the way to go here. If it has a hole in it like this, then it's been used and is empty. If it has the slightest sign of corrosion, it must be changed. Here's a very badly corroded cylinder from a jacket which had holes in the bladder as a result of this corrosion. The whole lot was condemned on site. Apart from the corrosion, this cylinder hasn't been fired and it weighs 139 grams, so it's full of CO2. Even so, we're going to dispose of it responsibly. The cylinder here is clean, it's not been fired and weighs what it says on the side, so it's fine to go back into the jacket. If we're replacing a cylinder, we need to remember to replace like with like. It will say on the cylinder what size it is, and also on the jacket stamped on the bladder and on the specification label. We need to make sure the cylinder is screwed in tight, like that. If it's not tight, the pin could pierce the end of the cylinder and the gas could escape out here instead of through there and into the bladder. Now we need to look at the UML cartridge. This one expires in September 2019, so it's in date and we can put it back into the jacket. We know this cartridge hasn't been fired automatically because it still has the green cap on the end. If it had been fired, this would have come off and we'd have been left with a red end. And this head hasn't been fired manually either because the green clip is still there. If it had been fired manually, the clip would have come off and it would show red beneath. Now we'll reattach the UML cartridge to the firing head. Again, screw it in nice and tight. Make sure as we do this that the manual toggle has a nice straight run. When we come to repack the jacket, we don't want the toggle caught round anything, we want it to have a free run, so if we need to use the toggle, bang, we pull that and the lever will come across. By the way, if your jacket has a UML Pro sensor firing head, you need to understand what the two greens are telling you. The upper tells you that the cylinder has not been fired. It doesn't tell you if the cylinder still has gas in it, but this is highly likely. It also doesn't tell you if the cylinder is corroded. The lower green tells us that the UML cartridge has not been fired. It doesn't tell us if the cartridge is in date, and the two greens don't tell us anything about the condition of the bladder of the life jacket. Two greens are a great start, but they don't tell you everything, so look inside and check. Finally, we will repack the life jacket, and of course I will always add in a lifesaver and a tag to let me know that the jacket has a lifesaver inside. And while we do this, we'll check the condition of the lifting becket. This is what you lift a man out of the water by and what we attach the lifesaver to. Here I just coil the lifesaver and place it on top of the bladder. You could put it into the pouch we supply if you like. And then finally zip up the jacket. And that's our life jacket serviced for the year. Some life jackets have two lifting beckets, as the beckets double up as buddy handles, so casualties can hang on to each other in the water. If your jacket has a stout buckle or metal clasp, then you can lift the man out on just one becket, either one. Only one model of life jacket and its variants requires a man to be lifted out on both beckets, as the jacket does up with a zip rather than a buckle, and the zip is not considered strong enough to withstand the lift from one side only. See moblifesavers.com for details. Our life jacket may have a Halki Roberts automatic firing system. The idea of the Halki Roberts is that it will not fire if it gets wet from water running down the life jacket, only from water penetrating the end of the bowl and rising up to the bobbin, as it would if you were immersed in the water. If the clip on the side is green, then it hasn't been fired manually. If it's red, it has. If the bottom of the bowl shows green, then it's not been fired automatically. If it shows red, it has. Then we need to see the date of the salt bobbin. Actually, we call it salt, but as I said before, it is microcrystalline cellulose. Unscrew the bowl and remove the yellow bobbin. The date of manufacture is written on the side. Here, the 7th of March 2014. The HR stands for Halki Roberts. Halki Roberts give us 6 years from the date of manufacture for the in-date period. This allows for 3 years on the shelf in a shop and 3 years in a life jacket. So this bobbin will go out of date on the 6th of March 2020. As today is the 25th of January 2017, we have a few years' life left on the bobbin. So we can pop that back in and screw the bowl back in place. And as long as the cylinder is in good condition and has gas in it, then we can close up the life jacket and everything is okay. When it comes to cleaning a jacket with a hammer hydrostatic firing system, we'll manually inflate the jacket before washing, but we'll leave the inflator cap in place with the cylinder, because if we remove them, we can't inflate the jacket, and we don't need to worry about the inflator cap going off, as it needs to be under pressure to do this. and spraying it with water won't set it off. Again, we'll dry it with a towel and place it in the airing cupboard. As soon as it's dry, remove the inflator cap with the special key. Here it is in close-up. I've removed the inflator body and cylinder from the jacket for demonstration purposes. We place the key here and turn, and the back plate on the inflator cap turns and unlocks the inflator cap from the body. When we twist a bit further, and there we go. Check the cylinder for condition and weight. And also check the inflator body. If the indicator is green, all is well. If it's red, it's been fired and needs to be replaced. Make sure the cylinder is screwed in tight. Lifejacket service companies will glue the cylinder in place for security. Notice also that this jacket requires a 38-gram cylinder, and that's what we've fitted. Check that the inflator cap is in date and that the indicator is green. If it's red, it means it's been fired. Here it's green, and the date on the cap says to replace during 2021. So that must mean by the 31st of December 2021. Now, with everything in date and ready to go, we insert the cylinder and the inflator body into the bladder. Then we line up the inflator cap with the inflator body, push together, and at the same time turn the back plate on the inflator cap clockwise to lock it in place. Then we'll inflate the jacket once more to check that we've created a perfect seal. This is most important, as I've known hydrostatics that have been put back together but where the seal has not been made and the jacket did not inflate. Leave it inflated for 24 hours just to be certain, then deflate and repack according to the manufacturer's instructions. If you're adding in any type of locator beacon, make sure you have them fitted correctly, again according to manufacturer's instructions, or by a specialist. Remember, this is how I service my life jackets. You should always refer to manufacturer's instructions, and if in any doubt, take your jackets to a recognised life jacket service station or chandler, or use one of C-Safe's 65 collection points in the UK. For details, go here. In any event, having watched this video, you have an understanding of what goes on inside a life jacket, if perhaps you didn't already know.